V.
Well, a few minutes to 8. Welcome once again to Morning at NTV. You're still with us here at NTV. I am Sandra Twinobio, and of course you can be part of this conversation on every single conversation that happens every morning using our hashtag Morning at NTV, and of course on our social media platforms, NTV Uganda on Facebook and NTV Uganda on Twitter. Well, the last 2 days you have seen have been very tense, and they've kickstart a very tense election period that has seen different things happen, that has seen different presidential candidates actually being swept or kidnapped away in their cars. And of course, you've also seen that on Monday, the elections, the nominations, we had peaceful deliberations, I want to put it that way, with 3 generals taking part and being nominated, from General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni to General Gregory Mugisha, and also not forgetting Henry Tumukunde. All the 3 were nominated, and also on Tuesday, we know that 2 candidates were supposed to be nominated. That is John Katumba, who is the youngest candidate that we have seen in these presidential nominations, and probably in the history of Uganda, considering the term limits were removed. And also not forgetting Nancy Kalembe, who is the only woman, in these elections, at least we are seeing. And it's been an amazing situation seeing her being actually nominated again, considering on Monday she had not followed all the requirements that were needed. But Tuesday was tense. Tuesday was extremely tense. We saw 2 candidates, one that saw Patrick Oboye Amoriat and also Chadon East Member of Parliament, being kidnapped by the police from their cars. And this morning we want to round it up and actually understand the 2 days events. And we have Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi, an economist who teaches at Makerere University Business School, and Ambassador James Chinobe, who is the ambassador of Uganda to Sudan. Welcome, gentlemen, to Morning at NTV.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for receiving us, and we're glad to make a contribution.
Well, just maybe to make it clear for the audience that is watching us, on my immediate left is Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi, the economist that I talked about, and on my far left is Mr. James Chinobe, who is the ambassador of Uganda to Sudan. Once again, a very good morning to very welcome to Morning at NTV, and I want to believe that all of us have followed the events of the last 2 days. And I want to start by picking your thoughts, and I'll start with you, Mr. James Chinobe. Your thoughts on the last 2 days, especially yesterday.
Well, I don't know why yesterday only, but
it's the most recent.
Well, it's the most recent, but allow me to congratulate all the candidates for having successfully gone through the nomination process. It is a tedious exercise, starting with the collection of signatures, looking for the money, mobilizing your supporters, and finally getting to that stage and successfully getting nominated. It wasn't easy. So I have every reason to congratulate all of them. I want to congratulate the generals who nominated, the first candidates who nominated the first day, first of all for their discipline, for observing all the rules, and having supporters. They could have gone out of their way, but at least they managed to contain themselves.
They could have, or they actually did?
They did, but not to the extent of what we saw on the second day, and that leads me to the second day. So I commend the conduct of the candidates of the first day, except my young brother, John, who had a hiccup at the gate and then finally failing to pay for the reasons he explained, but finally made it. And it's regrettable that the second day had a breakdown, which started right from, I think, the conduct of the candidates themselves, and finally, I think, to the sometimes excesses which we finally saw, maybe from the security people. But I always say that it takes 2 hands to clap. I think these situations would have been avoided if the conduct of the candidates on the second day was also the same conduct of the candidates on the first day, and if also the security could have restrained them in some excesses, which we also. So it's regrettable, but I think it's something we can pick up, because I think the candidates are coming for a meeting. They need to promise Ugandans that they're going to have a peaceful exercise, because we have only about 65 days of telling our people what is in the manifestos. And then also we caution the security people that they exercise maximum restraint and only need to use a lot of force if it's really needed.
Because in the event of yesterday, one would wonder if it was actually necessary for them to arrest Bobi Wine. We still want to understand the reasons behind that, but I will be coming back to you in regards to that. Mr. Ramathan,
yes.
What are your thoughts on the last 2 days of nominations?
I think I'm one of those Ugandans who are not surprised, because I think I've been following events for a number of years, 2001 to date. And the same script played out yesterday, only that this time the actors were different a bit. I saw Bobi Wine now, or Kyagulanyi, taking the place of Dr. Besigye, and the same, you know, kind of way things are playing out usually in the campaigns when they are heating up, because you like it or not, Mr. Kyagulanyi is now the #1 contender against President Museveni, the incumbent. And usually the politics of Uganda over years has been modeled in such a way that if you are not showing militant kind of approach to challenge this military man, the foster general, the public will not take you seriously. Most of the candidates who seem not to act in a way which, for example, defies the police, and also the police itself are trying to target the one who has the crowds, then there's no much kind of contention there. So I saw the script starting in the morning, and I knew where it would end, really.
So when the day started, you knew that at the end of the day we would have the events that ensued later in the day.
Absolutely.
Well,
I've been around.
You've been around long enough to see all that.
Yeah.
Well, also, maybe staying with you, you did tweet something on Monday, you know, some of the roads were blocked.
Yeah.
And you being an economist, does this, did it make any economic sense to actually have some roads closed? In your tweet, you seemed really not in support of that.
I meant every word in that tweet.
Okay.
I rarely tweet just for the sake. I really think that we are, in this country, taking for granted a lot of things when we are trying to demonstrate how we can express our democratic rights and so on. I think it was uncalled for the Electoral Commission to go on our main link to the sea and set up their center there, of nomination center, and block that road which connects Uganda to the sea for 2 days. To me, I think that was uncalled for. They could do better perhaps by putting up, for example, this nomination center elsewhere. I would think actually next time they should think through this very, very, because, you know, Ugandan politics is becoming increasingly violent. There is no way they would tell people, even if they were saying this is going to be a scientific election and therefore a scientific nomination, 10 people drive in the car, go to the nomination center and go back home. It's impossible. You know, politics is about excitement. And you come and you put it up on Jinja Road. That road is so important for Uganda. And you saw the kind of chaos which was caused in town. But I added there a clincher, I know, the last statement in my tweet, that they were doing this actually to carry out experiment, to which the results are almost known. You know, sometimes we go to the laboratory to do experiment when you are trying to find out.
To confirm?
No, actually first to find out and then you infer what you have found out. But in this case, you know, I don't know. I don't know what Ugandans think, but I don't think there is any kind of chance for anyone to go in an electoral process in Uganda today. I know how Uganda is structured, and I think many Ugandans know. And you defeat an incumbent, and for that matter, an incumbent who is so hardworking to stay in power, like President Museveni.
All right.
So I wouldn't.
For you, it did not really make any economic sense at all.
It didn't make at all.
Ideally, you would have wanted the roads to stay open?
Oh yeah, I would want, maybe they should have taken this somewhere to like Wakiso or Nakasongola or somewhere in Entebbe there.
So for all the candidates to drive from Kampala
Oh yeah,
to
actually you put up facilities where they can stay and they get
permanent
nominated.
structure.
And because you know, going forward we need really to realize that the fact is our politics has become so contentious and militarized, and the younger people, so many out there waiting, and naively they think they can make a difference by making a lot of noise and fight for their rights against police. But also the police is so prepared. Actually the commanders were there the previous days telling them, we are very ready for you, come and definitely I know where the script could go.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi, giving us an economic sense. Well, moving on to you on the same issue, I want you to share with us what you think of his thoughts, but also on the side of, as a country, your party that you represent has always talked about democracy, has always talked about freedom of speech. What you saw in the last 2 days, would you say from the roads being closed, from the NRM party having its own congregation of people supporting and standing on the way, waiting for the president, and no violence was actually seen, and on Tuesday we see all these actions coming through, the candidates being swept away, kidnapped, all these things, what do they mean to you?
Starting from the point he made that he wasn't surprised.
Were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised.
You equally were not surprised.
Yes, because
you knew what would
right
happen.
from the previous day, starting with the FDC, the standing orders had been issued by the Electoral Commission, which numbers, how to move and so on. The FDC was telling the country that we're mobilizing 2,000 people to march with us to escort our candidate to Chambogo. So, and I saw their spokesperson emphatically making the point, and nobody would stop us and so on. So right from the eve, when we saw them deploying and start stopping some people going to the headquarters while people were arriving, I knew definitely that something was going to happen. What I was equally surprised about maybe was with the NAP, because I saw Mr. Senyenyi the previous day on TV saying, no, we were impressed because President Museveni's supporters were on the road and were not disturbed and so on. Therefore, we call upon the police to also allow our people to stand on the road and wave to their candidate. I said, oh, wonderful, this is okay. And I had expected the supporters of NAP to stand on the road the way these others had done. But we also the clips. They were not standing on the road. They instead sweeping the roads, blocking the roads, riding border and obstructing their candidate for almost a whole hour. And the police had to struggle to restrain them and deliver the candidate to the nomination grounds. So I think that discrepancy in the conduct, I was surprised about it, because I had expected the same message to be given to the NAP supporters that stand on the road, because we also supporters of Museveni standing on the road. Actually, when you look at the script, some of them were even telling people, extend distance, social distancing, and so on. Then I saw the candidate, President Museveni, after nomination, waving to people from his car. But what did we see with the other candidates? They're starting on the top of the vehicles, waving and inciting the people to follow them and so on. So,
do you think that
NUP
caused its own mess on this day?
As you rightly said, politics causes excitement. I will tell you, if President Museveni had stopped anywhere, those crowds would actually have powered in the road. But he was conscious about it, that he's stopping alone, even if it's for a second, people will surge into their vehicles too. He has an open roof car. He would have stood out also and waved to his people, and that would also attract them. So we had thought that what we had seen on the first day would maybe send a consistent picture, and it's just a day, a few hours. So I was surprised, especially with NAP, because their statement of the spokesperson the previous day had been different, and I had thought they were going to do exactly like the NRM people. But with the FDC, I knew, because they had first of all indicated that they are going to march with their people and nobody would stop them. I knew a confrontation was going to emerge, and finally we saw what really ended up. Two, I think the police, though they mishandled the Honorable Amriat, but I think it was right to pick him and deliver him to the Electoral Commission, because if he had delayed...
Pick him in his own car? Just
leave him? It had become virtually impossible to take him in his car. Just like it became impossible for our young brother
to get in. But according to him, he was simply just going to pick his documents from Ramathan Ggoobi and also carry on. A
candidate is much bigger than an individual. Let's talk about someone becoming a president. You're an institution. You don't really have to ride yourself to pick these things. Let's get to know how things work. Like for the NRM, the bus moved with the 10 people. If a big bus, which would have even taken more, moved with the 10 people, the seconders and so, and they moved ahead of their principal. I would have expected people, people aspiring to be heads of state, I think the conduct should lift that level to somewhere near where you think you're going to be chief of the state. Your conduct and message should also rhyme with what you do and what you say, and we should see a difference. But if you still behave the same way when you're out, it's unfortunate, because even when you yourself you get there, you get disrupted and you'll not be amused. So I would think that the conduct and the discipline of our leaders who get themselves out of us, the ordinary, to become chief executives of the country, the conduct should shift a bit. Of course, that doesn't mean that I condone that the police should be moving in ruthlessly the same way it harasses and humiliates them. But we need to understand that some of those people there also have gone through difficult times. So we shouldn't provoke them. It's just a few days. So it's regrettable, but I think I would call upon our candidates to check their behavior. Now, to the point of economics, well, partly I agree with him, it's economics, but I know there are many alternative routes. I know that if you block from Nakawa to Chambogo, one can branch off from Chirega, you can branch off from Bweyogerere, use the northern bypass and continue to Jinja, continue to Gulu, and so on. So me, I don't see really anything very bad. However, there is one positive point. I think we need to get out of Kampala, because Kampala is expanding. Two, most people just take advantage because they are near here. And the opposition has always wanted to play gallery politics, be seen, the media running around. So if a serious person is to be nominated and you move to Nakasongola, let's see how you ferry all of these people with border borders to Nakasongola or somewhere outside Kampala, away from cities, not even Jinja. Get a playground somewhere, even in Mbale, and you can afford. I think I entirely agree with him that in subsequent activities, let's get out of cities.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, at least what I gather from both of you is that you all agree that the events that unfolded were not a surprise to any of you.
No.
You expected some of these things to happen. All right. Now, for those watching us this morning, you can also be part of the conversation and share with us your thoughts on the last 2 days, what they mean to you, what are some of the key areas that you picked, but also to remind you that in the 2021 race, we have 11 candidates. And of these, we only have one of them that is coming back. That is Norbert Mao, that is contesting for the second time. I just want to pick your thoughts, and I want to start with you, Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi. What you make of the candidates that are in this current race? The 11, we even have the youngest, who's 24 years, joining the race for the very first time. What does this make?
I think that's good for democracy, that people can come up to dream and aspire and try to challenge the incumbent who has been around for as long as some were born, or even before they were born. And also to see a lady amongst them, to me, is quite a good thing, which is inspiring for the younger generation to say, I'm coming up. Unfortunately, as I said, the space for them to fully express themselves is so limited. First, because it has been like that historically, the politics of Uganda. I think the last time we had like a kind of free open space was around 96, and many of us were kids. Maybe that's why we think it was there. I don't know who were adults, what they saw then. But from 2001, the space has been narrowing and narrowing further. President Museveni has been quite candid in his speeches, and I've been one of those ardent listeners because I've been writing a column, Are You Listening, Mr. President, for the last 14 or so years. And in every election that has happened, he has made it clear that he can't easily be defeated by the ballot paper. And this message sank in my head. And I think it should be also sinking in so many other heads, only that the political season brings excitement. You see, whenever election is happening in Uganda, people come up and think, oh, this time, I think we are getting it. And many younger people, and also there are many first voters, first-time voters who come on, and also they get encouraged. So I don't think that the space is as open as it should be. And also to add on that historical challenge, then comes COVID. And with the COVID, I think the incumbent got a very good opportunity to also kind of crowd out this kind of competition that would have come maybe in terms of getting these crowds again, and also him running around now in his advanced age and so on. Because when COVID hit us, the first thing everywhere in the world, they are very cautious about social distancing. So you can't rule it out. You can't say you are just politicizing this. No, the truth is there's COVID-19. If you don't social distance, you help it to spread. And Uganda has been one of those countries that have been ranked so highly in the way we have handled it, because the president came out early and he made an effort because of the devastation we saw, which it caused even to the richest countries in the world. And he said, no, we are not going to allow ourselves to go to hospitals. The best thing is to prevent it. And with that, they brought the SOPs, which are prescribed by the World Health Organization. And now this gave, to me, the NRM a very good lifeline in terms of stopping others from engaging. And they are stopping them legally this time, because it's clear. They tell you you are not going to have crowds because you are going to spread COVID. And the police has these, SOPs with them. So when I saw my good friend Honorable Kyagulanyi now going to Kyambogo, and a number of people were getting excited and coming to the roads. Some were running with him, others, of course, all over the town, showing excitement. I knew that his return journey is going to be very difficult, because they had to facilitate him to get nominated.
But also maybe to cut you short, in his speech he said that the same police that was leading him actually tried to puncture his car. He got some hitches along the way.
Wrong.
I can't say that it was wrong. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. That's a detail which they can always cut out and prove. Their courts of law, their areas of redress where they can go. But what my analysis is, he was facilitated to go and get nominated, but he wouldn't be allowed to use the same routes and engage his people the way he did. And I think that's where the scuffle started, when they were taking him back home, and the guy wanted to nominate his manifesto, like the incumbent had done the previous day. Only that now, for him, the crowds, he couldn't control them.
And the venue he had chosen.
And also he had made it clear the previous day that they were going to really fight with the police. I saw both FDC and NUP kind of sending a clear message, okay, veiled, but clear enough, to the police and the public that we are in for a fight. And I thought this was the same script of Dr. Besigye, and that it had not worked the previous time Besigye used it, and I knew it wouldn't work.
So it is history repeating itself.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think from what I gathered clearly from your discussion and the candidates that are coming through is that it's a good thing for them. But according to you, the space they're competing in is not favorable for them to actually take over leadership from the incumbent, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think they don't have too much chance to do that. And that doesn't really require genius to see. The chance is not there so much. But
I feel like we have all resigned, not even just from you, but the general public feels like they're just going through the election period just for show. But ideally, at the end of the day, 2021, we already know who's going to be president.
You know, anyone who's a pragmatist, that you look at things and you assess them according to the chance of success. You can easily see that there is very limited chance, if at all, for any candidate to defeat President Museveni. Number one is an incumbent who has been around and uses a lot the state to make himself quite dominant. But two, is also a very hard-working one. There are many incumbents who are not as hard-working as he is. You know, sometimes I see people saying, you know, we have seen other people fall. Yes, they have done that. But this is a man who starts campaigning the day he swears in for the next term. He starts, and also he's always mobilizing, he's always trying to get as many people in his camp as possible, and he doesn't allow others to do the same. Secondly, when you look at the candidates who are coming up, the other two generals have been with him before. None of them resigned to go and stand. They worked under him, he sacked them, all of them. And that's when they went and started to oppose him. They would have created, some good, formidable kind of challenge against him, because they are military generals, and in Uganda people have started to actually believe that if you don't know the gun, if you have never been a general, it would be very difficult for you to lead Uganda. But that qualification they have is a bit weaker when it comes to in the minds of people that, after all, you've been there before with him, and you didn't leave until he pushed to your side. That's when you came to all of them, the three of them who have challenged him, the military people. When you come to others who are like me, for us, we don't have any chance. To me, in my view, I don't see that chance.
Well, over to you, Mr. James Chinove. What do you make of the candidates that we're seeing in this new race? We are seeing a candidate as young as 24 years, and from his submission saying that, yes, it's good for them, but it's also not good because they do not have a fair space to compete. From the ruling party yourself, do you also share the same thought?
First of all, I want to start from the statement, which is always attributed to President Museveni, that he can't be easily, mark the words, easily defeated at the ballot. But he has gone ahead to justify why he can't be easily defeated in a ballot. Because elective politics, you compete, and the numbers determine who wins. Just look at the statistics of the formation of the structures of our respective parties. Whereas NRM has had candidates right from LC1, more than one candidate competing, and recently we had even an exercise to go on reconciling others. Most of the parties don't even have party branches outside their headquarters. Looking at that alone, even if you were to take the elected leaders of the party structures to be the ones voting for their respective parties, you would still immediately see that NRM has got an edge over all the other parties. So I entirely agree with President Museveni that if you go to the ballot, and even if it's a free and fair ground, whatever you would want, we cannot be defeated there, because we've done our ground, we've mobilized up to the grassroots. As to whether they don't actually allow them to go down is a different debate of another day. But what I know is that the opposition, immediately after the elections, while the president moves to the villages, they concentrate in the cities to show their presence, go to the media, work here, run around, and so on, instead of clandestinely trying to see whether, because what surprises, I go for elections every time around and find at a polling station where the party did not even have an agent, it gets some votes. Why don't they sit down and say, wait a minute, I got 300 voters at this polling station where I didn't have an agent. Who are these? Can I try to move down and look for them? They don't. Until towards the election period, you see them running around and so on, for obvious reasons. Two, I think democracy is a process. It grows. I wouldn't want to send messages discouraging everybody contesting in the elections in Uganda, because, first of all, biology is in the favor of Ugandans. President Museveni is at his exit. My brother John is at the entry. So over time, for the first time, by the way, in this country, you've had repetitive and consecutive elections, which we didn't have. People who lost elections in 1962 never had elections until 1980. And they lost opportunities to contest with anybody who had defeated them at an early election. But this time around, people have opportunities, they get exposed, you get to know who is where. And I strongly believe that over time, with this practice and getting exposed, I believe that our democracy is in the right direction. Tomorrow you're going to have a big pool of leaders. We shall not have a problem of no. For me, when I grew up, we knew even the leaders. It is Manyanganyi, it is Bidanji Sali, it is this one, and so on. And you don't really get confined to pick from that particular lot. But right now, as I tell you, you have a pool in NRM, you have a pool in FDC, you have a pool in NAP, you have a pool in DP. It's a process, and I'm very happy about it. And I want to tell people that with our theme of securing our future, the best of securing our future is through this. When you look at having candidates as young as 24 years, having the confidence to contest with a general, a judge, I'm very glad that finally we're in the
Well,
right
someone
direction.
may say,
so
okay,
we
a
shouldn't
judge,
discourage
but
them.
for
Let's have every round of elections to pick experiences that help us to move on.
it is believed that Uganda has one of the youngest populations.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know?
But also
do
the
you feel
navist.
that as your the navist?
Yes,
Do you
our
feel
young
like
people
that
are
as your party, you've been able to associate with the young people's issues and actually relate with them? Because maybe this is why most of the young people are backing the younger generation, because they feel they understand their issues. Do you feel the current president is actually able to go down on the grassroots and understand the issues that affect young people? Do you think he's been able to study the situation?
The NRM is the only party which has brought on board all the young people and all categories of people, right from women, the disabled, and I'll tell you, in the recent elections of structures and party organs, we defeated all the other parties by over 90%, and the youth scored 90% of the win throughout the country. One would have assumed that maybe it is in the rural areas where maybe NRM has a monopoly, but I'll tell you, even in the city, we got over 50% of the vote where the opposition forces are more active. And all these young people are in our structures. Just look at our structures and the people who are getting elected into elective offices. The only challenge, I think, which possesses our friends is just the topmost office. I will tell you that we have had a very high turnover at all offices, all elective offices except the presidency. And it's the only one. Right now you are having candidates as young as 24. I think we are gradually getting to that stage. You're even having ladies. Why don't
I
you
think
look?
what that ideally means is that even a candidate as old as 90 years
Absolutely.
can contest for
Absolutely.
president.
But if you look at if Museveni is energetic at his age of, say, he's getting to 80, do you think he'll be as energetic at 80 years? It will give advantage. So let's leave the process continue growing. Let all our leaders get exposed. Let them pick the experience. You would have seen. I was not surprised when the generals behaved the way they behaved, because they've been going through a series of leadership. And I don't want to send messages that I despise our other young leaders. But you could see some age aspects in the way of walking, the way of talking, that some people still need time to grow into becoming mature leaders. I think we shall get there.
All right. Do you believe that some of the people that join the race need to first take some time off to actually understand the process before they can contest, especially for Bobi Wine?
I've never
I didn't mention a specific candidate.
Yes, I'm just saying.
That is yours.
Yes.
Whether you mentioned Bobi Wine, but for me, I'm saying.
Especially like
no,
Bobi Wine, because he's like.
described him by the way of walking.
No,
Yes.
but even Amriat walked that way, so I didn't describe
But
anyone.
also he's really the most active.
But anyway, if the impression is, it means you see what I see.
Yeah.
The point is,
Yes.
I'm not an expert of political kind of campaigns and how people at what age they should enter and what they should be doing. But one analysis I can make here is that, number one, democracies grow with economies. When you are having a poor, small economy, pre-capitalist economy, don't expect to have mature democracy. Doesn't work that way. And Uganda is such a country where, by virtue of the fact that we are still a pre-capitalist economy, and we are yet to transform economically by creating, for example, productive jobs, which make people vote for interests. Because, you know, voting elsewhere is different from the way we vote in Africa. If you go, for example, in the US, they are counting votes right now between Biden and Trump. It has been the interests of different groups of people. The workers, whom they call middle class, the rich guys, and then the minorities, and so on and so forth. Here, in Uganda, it's about someone saying, the other one has overstayed. This is a newcomer. Let me change. Let me go with the newcomer. Another is saying, for us, no change. We are here. So these kind of things are not defining exactly the reason why we should be voting. And as long as these younger people, especially in urban areas, remain unemployed and without hope, you know, that's why for me, the main issue which even the NRM, which is in power, should be concentrating on, and those who are challenging it should be also concentrating on, is how do we transform the economy to create jobs for especially the younger people and the women, because you know women are participating in the labor market in Uganda, but they are doing mainly informal jobs, selling things on the roadside and so on. How do you integrate these people who are outside the monetized economy to enter the economy is the most important thing. And once that is achieved, then we are going to see wealth created, and people will start to vote to protect their interests. For example, now there are certain, here in Kampala, you will also vote in a certain way. If you went to Kololo or to Bugolobi or to Naguru, and you will see different patterns of voting from Chisenyi, from Kamocha, and so on. Why? It's not because of a man called Museveni or so on. It's about interests. People vote to protect their interests. In Uganda, those interests are not legitimate enough. They are not well defined and well developed to encourage people participate in this democracy for a good reason. That's why you see someone would be rightly telling you that some of the people who are aspiring to become president were actually looking for a job. Just like those who are aspiring to become MPs and you are at least a village chief. Also, everybody is looking at how do I survive? And that's the biggest challenge we are having as a country today.
All right. Now let's talk about something that I'm sure you're all familiar with as we speak now. The only manifesto we have is that of the NRM party.
No.
At least for now, isn't it?
So at least we have an extract from the NAP.
A bit of it,
a bit of it,
but it wasn't that clear because we wanted him also to give us a detailed one. But we want to look at, for instance, the different promises that you've made in your different manifestos from 2001, where you were tackling the tasks ahead, 2006, consolidating the achievements, prosperity for all, that is in 2011, prosperity for all, better service delivery, and job creation in 2016, and now 2021. We are looking at taking Uganda to modernity through job creation and inclusive development. Now, also we know that ever since the current president took over power in 1986, we have seen him deliberately say that he's not ready to leave because his dream of the African Federation has not been achieved. And creating creating jobs has been a recurring issue. Some of the things that we are looking at in the manifesto, where you're saying you're now securing your future, how different is it from other manifestos? What makes 2021 manifesto different from the one of 2016, for instance?
Yeah, first of all, to the point which he was making, that we don't have ideological basis for going into elections, and maybe it's different in the US. He's right to say that it's about interests, but the interests keep changing. We saw the interests when Baraka was coming in, and we are seeing now a different dimension of interest. And actually what is happening in America this time around is a classic African type of politics. We don't know what may come even out tonight, because I've been seeing clips of people even organizing to fight, and sentiments that Trump will not accept the results of the elections. So I think there is, we need to look at societies and distinguish what their aspirations always are. For the case of Uganda now, I'll tell you, it is true there is a problem of unemployment. There's and a perception that when you get into politics, somehow your life changes, because most of our people have seen those who have finally landed in, and within a very short time, their lifestyle, and whether in the opposition, whether in the outside the opposition. So it has become a style that, hey, I think things don't work elsewhere, which is a challenge to both of us, the teams that are vying for power and those which are having power. I think we need to see how we bring in you know, you'll never have jobs to satisfy everybody to sit in offices here. We had a policy to make sure that we liberalize education. But you know, in the process of liberalizing, we churn out many graduates who are, some of them are not practically going to get jobs, and yet people are told that when you get the education, it's the key, and it's a way to become a Mr. Ggoobi. They get the key, and they'll tell you, when we got the keys, you had to change the locks. So we need to open up the mindset of our people that getting education and getting that type of training does not mean an office job, which means that in creating jobs, you need to spread out either industries and so on, but also that sector is talking about. I don't agree that a lady selling her commodities on the roadside is not a monetized economy. I see many people doing very, very well, only that we need to empower them to do it much better, to build the capacity and be
on
able
a bigger
to
scale?
On a bigger scale. People producing in the villages instead of doing it peasantry. We empower them to do it commercially, but go into organizations. If the problem is short of credit, you see how to access credit which is affordable, but also learn to pay back the credit. Because the challenge has been, government has been pumping out a lot of money into lending all those vulnerable groups. But what happens, they think it's government money. When they pick it, it is never recycled into the objectives that are intended to. But I still believe that that broadening, whether you're selling your newspapers, whether you're growing your tomatoes and offloading them on the road, you are getting attracted into the monetary economy. We should encourage them. I'll tell you, when you drive from my village in Ruero and move up to Kampala, you find that there are markets that sprang up along the road. But if you branch, find out how many of those commodities are actually grown by the people who live in that area. You find most of the Irish comes from Kabale, the Matoke comes from some other area, and all the things they sell there are actually imported into their district and sold to the local people there. That's an area where you need to encourage people that if there is a market on the road for these commodities to be sold, why don't you participate in producing them? So those are the challenges we still have, but because of the mindset we have, people look at us in shoots in offices and they think the best way of life is out there. Young people sell off their bibanjas and buy border borders to come into, which is a very good sector, service sector. But why would you sell off your border to come and ride up, I mean, your land to come and participate in that informal, which is not a very sustainable sector? So it's a challenge which we need to take on as a government, and we've been trying. However, as you know, we don't have, I think this is lacking, we don't have a break where we finish politics and work together as leaders of the communities, whether we're in the opposition and government, and send the same message. You find that every time after the elections, whatever policy comes out, let's have a contrary view, let's have this, and we end up in that fighting, running around. By the time you go to another election, no manifesto has been implemented. Our manifesto, when you want to look at it, cumulatively look at all the 35 years we've been having as a country. Where did we start from? Where was our GDP levels so many years back? Where have we reached? What are the new challenges? Because these economists will tell you that every time you sort out a situation, definitely there is another one.
Well, for those that are watching
and
us
how do you
this morning,
evaluate that consequence and then
for those watching us this morning, we do know that your manifesto is a 375-page manifesto under the theme Securing the Future, and is based on 5 components. Among these include creating wealth and jobs, which is
a continuation of what we've been doing. Yes,
we get that. Delivering education and wealth, which is more or less a continuation as well. Ensuring justice and equity, protecting life and property, and also achieving political integration. Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi, what do you make of the NRM's manifesto come 2021? Does it make sense to you as a political analyst, as an economist? Does it make any economic sense to you?
I'm not only an economist, I was part of the team that authored this manifesto.
All right.
I was called on by the president. You know, over the years I've been writing, as I told you, a column. And my column analyzes it was critiquing the way President Museveni and his government have been managing, especially the economy, over the years. And he said, I've been reading your things over years, and they make some sense. So come and join my team and incorporate those ideas, because I want to, this time, to concentrate on transforming the economy of Uganda. And I joined the team. It's been a fantastic 2 months of trying to put together this document. This manifesto, I want to tell you that first of all, when he gave us the terms of reference, he said, and he pulled us from so many areas of expertise and even political affiliation. There wasn't like you are NRM, now no. Different people from all walks of life, scientists and so on. He told us, I don't want politicians anymore to be the ones to make for Uganda this manifesto. I want you, the professionals, to use your profession and analyze independently where we have come from, where we are, and what you would want the country to go. And please document it that way for us, and you show us on how we can implement that. So a team of about 14 scientists from different universities, from different research institutions and so on, and us economists came together and made up this. So that's how you see that this is a manifesto which is first of all research driven and science-led. Research-driven in a way that right from the economy of Uganda, when it was in formative stages, in the colonial times, to where it is, we trace it for the younger people of Uganda. To know that Uganda did not begin yesterday. Yeah. Because there has been this anomaly in Uganda of comparing Uganda in terms of when NRM came to power in '86 to where it is now. And the people had started to think that that's where the Uganda started in '86. This is a manifesto which traces Uganda's economy and political economy from 1900 up to today. I know some people say, oh, we are tired of history. But you can't understand where you are going if you don't know where you are coming from. And that has been now documented in a very systematic manner. Then after that, we concentrate on now analyzing on what has been stopping Uganda from, you know, transforming the economy. So in that, we've done a good job in terms of analyzing the unfinished business of this regime and the past governments, especially when it comes to the economy. Things to do with having so many people in subsistence. We define we kind of disaggregate them, and we show what needs to be done to ensure that all of these people who are in subsistence, and you know subsistence is not only in farming, it's also in the urban here. This what Honorable Chinobe was talking about, a lady selling some mangoes on the roadside, or a guy selling some Rolex, and another one riding a border. You know those people, when you analyze them, they could be sharing 10,000 shillings the whole day. It runs around them. The border guy carries the other one who
for 2,000
does saloon for 2,000. Then one of saloon takes the 2,000 to buy a Rolex. Then the Rolex guy calls the border guy to go and buy cooking oil. So you find 2,000 has been running around them. Now, that economy of small monies is also subsistence. And we are saying, how do you break this? Economies have transformed by industrializing. And we are saying, if Uganda does not build an industrial base to create productive jobs and wealth, which is sustainable, forget about transformation.
All right. Thank you so much, the wonderful gentleman, for honoring our invitation to Morning at NTV. We'll continue to deliberate and actually analyze the manifesto from the NRM party, but also other manifestos, and see which one actually works. And it is for the citizens to choose which leader will lead, or who has a better manifesto, or who can lead the country, and we'll wait to see how everything plays out in the 2021 elections. But it's a lot that we could have talked about. I see so many comparisons in regards to the environment, in regards to the young people. Have they been catered for? All these things we still want to understand them, but we know that now we don't have much time, but probably we'll continue this on our social media platforms and in other engagements where we'll meet you too.
I just want to call upon our political actors.
Yes.
Having disseminated some of these issues, really focus sometimes, would shift some of the real issues that concern the people. But you find that we spend a lot of useful time in diversionary aspects, and by the time we get to another election, there's nothing done. Not even the attention on such documents he's talking about. No attention even on the issues that actually affect the people directly.
Yes.
We're in running battles over who is supposed to be where and so on. I think our political actors, whether you be the ones in State House or those in the oppositions, I think there is a time when we need some collectivity. This leads to the question of political consensus on the questions of how the country should move, in which direction, and which issues are important, and how we tackle them. I think it's important. And my president, I think, is something he could engage on. Like he engages many other politicians from different shades. I think he should also engage political organizations, and we generate consensus over the issues that have been generated as a way forward for the country.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. James Chinobe, for joining us, who is the ambassador of Uganda to Sudan. Thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV, and also thank you so much, the economist on this show, Mr. Ramathan Ggoobi, for coming through. And he also took part in the 300 175-page manifesto. So we'll have some bit of questions right after this interview. Well, morning at NTV, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with Stephen Bide, who is speaking to Patrick Oboy and Moriet in Nigeria.